Vizaduum the Watcher is arguably one of the most mechanically difficult fights a 5-man WoW has ever seen, and so a lot of groups are going to struggle with this. But if you get the mechanics down right, this fight does not have to be hard. I say this even though the footage you are watching ends in a wipe, because I screwed up. However, as long as everyone knows and follows the mechanics, this fight does not have to be hard, so let's go over the mechanics. This fight has 3 phases. He will push through to phase 2 at 66% and phase 3 at 33%. During all of these phases, he has 3 core mechanics. He will disintegrate, at which point he will turn towards a character and he will cast a short-cast disintegrate ray, and anyone who is hit by it will be knocked back and dealt a lot of damage. This is particularly dangerous in phase 2 and 3 when you can get knocked off the platform, such as you'll see me causing a wipe in phase 3 in this video. So the way to prevent this is obviously for people to watch which direction he is facing when you cast disintegrate and sidestep it. It is not a very large cone, it is a line, so with a little bit of finagling you can easily sidestep this. The next one is Chaotic Shadows. This is something that technically seems like the healer's worry, but it's something that everyone needs to worry about. This is a dot that will be placed on a player and it deals damage to them over time. When it is dispelled or when it expires, a series of black balls will extend from the player wherever they were dispelled, and that will deal a lot of damage, and they move relatively quickly. And so not only does the player need to get to a safe place to drop their balls before they are cleansed or the debuff expires, but they also need, the other players also need to be aware of where that player is so that they don't get hit by the balls. Now, in the first phase, the healer can simply wait for the person to be in a safe place and cleanse. However, in phase 2, 2 people will get this debuff, and at this point in time, they must choose who to cleanse because cleanse is on that cooldown. So you typically will want to choose the person who is most likely to die from the dot to cleanse, and then allow the dot to expire on someone who is more in a better position to take that damage. Obviously, you also want to consider where the person is standing. If you're going to pop one that's about to expand balls in melee, not so good. Well, if someone else is safe in the back, that's probably a good person to cleanse. In phase 3, 3 people will get this debuff, and it will become even worse. There will be balls flying all over the place, and so this really ramps up, and it's something that everyone needs to be aware of, is where are people dropping this debuff. The third core ability in every phase is called Burning Blast. This is cast on the tank every few seconds when he's not casting something else, and it causes a bit of damage when it first hits, and it also causes a dot, and the dot stacks. And so the point here is that you probably, unless you brought a lot of interrupts, can't interrupt all of them. So what you want to do is let 1, maybe 2 through, and interrupt 2 in a row in order to make sure that more don't get through so that the tank can reset their stacks. This debuff is cleansable if you get into a bad moment, but of course the healer might need to save those cleanses for Chaotic Shadows, and so you definitely don't want to rely on a healer to let that through. You want those interrupts to be handled properly. It is a very good idea to set up a interrupt rotation and to be on Discord so that you can talk about who's going to get the next interrupt. In phase 1, there are 2 ships flying overhead, and each one has its own ability that is also happening during this phase. The first ship is going to acquire a target, and it is then going to drop green slime in about 5 seconds later, and that person needs to kite the green slime away from the group. So ideally, they will take it to a wall and kite it through there, so that they aren't hitting anyone else with it. This can be cast on a tank, which causes some issues if the tank is one of your interrupters, because if the guy is in green goo, and the tank has to run away from green goo, it might be tough for them to interrupt. So having a backup ranged interrupt, such as from a boomkin or a resto shaman, is a really great idea if you have one, though it shouldn't be required. The other ship flying overhead has a bombardment ability, which basically causes green swirlies in the ground, and a few seconds later, some damage hits those swirlies. So obviously this is something you want to avoid, but it's one of the more simple mechanics to avoid. So that is phase 1. You're avoiding all these mechanics, you're doing your cleanses properly, you're getting those interrupts off. Once he hits 66%, he's going to summon a portal in front of him. Tanks, make sure that you're positioning him so that he does not summon that portal in the green stuff. Granted, if at most you'll only take 1 tick, but that 1 tick matters a lot in some of these fights. You will then be ported to the second ship. Once you're on the second ship, you will find Viz is on the other side of the ship, and you must get to him because he is disintegrating down the line. While you are trying to get to him, however, you've got lightning pillars on either side. So you need to move your way up the ship without being hit by the disintegrate, which will of course do damage and knock you back, hurting your progress, and also making sure that you avoid the lightning. Once someone is in melee range, he will stop disintegrating down the ship, and the disintegrate at this point is similar to Helya in Maw of Souls, so just get out of it based on where he's facing. Once the group is all there, it will become a normally tanked fight again. However, he still has those 3 core abilities, and remember that Chaotic Shadows is now going to be on 2 players, and you also have significantly less room to really finagle with the disintegrate in order to avoid it. So everyone needs to be very careful, especially because the tank might not be used to dodging disintegrate, but if a melee or a ranged is too close to him because they were trying to avoid something, they can also be knocked off, like you'll see happen to me in Phase 3. So it's very important that everyone pays attention to where they stand, both for the disintegrate as well as for the chaotic shadows, which is going to start needing to expire on one player and be cleansed on the other. And in the meantime, of course, you are still dealing with those same interrupt rotations for the burning blast. You no longer will have to deal with the ray that leaves the green goo on the ground. However, you will have to deal with bombardments more often, so it's just more stuff to move out of on this ship. Keep in mind that it is better to take a bombardment than to take a disintegrate, because the bombardment is not going to knock you off the ship. At 33%, he will conjure another portal to the other ship. Once you're on the ship, you will not have to deal with bombardment. However, a new mechanic is introduced. When you appear on the ship, you will once again be on the opposite end from the boss. He will be stabilizing a portal. You must get to him and interrupt this cast before it finishes, or else it is a wipe, because the demons that he is summoning will just come through far too fast. However, the difficulty in getting to him this time is that you can see many ads on the boat. The tank must pick up these ads on their way up, and then once you get to the boss, chain as many AoE stuns as you can, pop some cooldowns, and burn down those ads. Once the ads are dead, 2 more will spawn about every 20 seconds. The tank should pick them up. Ideally, you might kill the first set and be able to just burn the boss from there. However, your group will need to play it by ear based on if they have the DPS to ignore future ads or if they should kill future ads. This is a very high damage section of the fight, and I recommend saving heroism for burning down that first round of ads, in which there are so many of them, and as a way to help your healer overcome the massive amount of damage that's going out. Speaking of massive amount of damage, there are going to be 3 chaotic shadows this time, meaning 1 person will be able to be cleansed, but 2 people will have the dot ticking down and then eventually expiring, causing all those balls to come out, and there's a lot of stuff going on, so people will very frequently be hit by these shadow orbs. Obviously, this is technically avoidable, but it is a very difficult thing for some players, so healers be ready with some cooldowns. Hopefully you can burn him down before your group dies. All in all, this fight is one of the most challenging 5-man fights that World of Warcraft has ever seen, so you should definitely be proud of yourself when your group finishes it out. Have a great day, guys.